Welcome to Make Your Mark podcast, where guests share their experiences, insights, and tactics to help you accelerate your business. So building, scaling, and monetizing your business is made easier. And I will be your host, Kay Suthar. Hey guys, here's another really special episode for you. And this is a really special member from the DI Mastermind that you have been hearing so much about, right? You've heard different individuals, but this person, oh my goodness, she's like a secret sauce of what she does. Now, she works a lot in corporate and she teaches people how they can actually find partners and have all these great contracts with people in corporate. Like, these are big contracts and how you can go about doing it. But also, she's a bit of a wild card because she's got a whole different side to her, which we're going to be discussing later on as well. So please welcome Carol Deveney. Oh my goodness, Carol, I'm super excited to have you here. Carol, like I was saying, I'm so excited for you to be here because you've got so much experience, right? And you've been doing this for a long time. And it's something I guess people haven't thought about tapping into, or if they have, they don't really know how to go about it, right? And I really want to dig a little bit more deeper as to how you help your clients. But before we go there, right, I would love for you to share with our audience today a little bit about what it is that you've done to get to this place, because we all know a business doesn't happen in a click of a finger. You don't wake up one morning and bam, you have this multi-million-dollar or pound company. Right? So what did your journey look like to get to where you were? What were some of the obstacles that you had to kind of do the twists and turns and overcome?
Sure. And I think you're so right. Like, you don't wake up one morning and you've got a successful business. And I have a bit of a theory that people who start businesses are very often people who have had to face some adversity in their life. So either that's they've had to deal with like systemic adversity. So the world isn't set up to be fair to everyone. Some people have to overcome that on a daily basis. And then there are some people who have individual and personal adversity. So actually they might have a fairly privileged life, whatever that looks like. But actually they then experience things that they have to overcome and build their resilience. And I think a lot of people who start businesses have that background because you have to be a bit of a risk taker because you do have to overcome obstacles. And I think it's people who know, well, I overcame that, or I'm still overcoming it, I can probably have a go at having a business.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so it literally was, oh, I've got this idea. Let me just see how it works out and just go for it.
I mean, I literally quit my job. I had a very good job. I was vice president of a big organisation. We were living in Canada. I'd been headhunted. I had a senior role in a UK organisation, got headhunted to go to Canada, moved our whole life over there, sold our house. Some things happened that just meant that it wasn't a good place for me to stay anymore. It was a combination of needing to come home and needing to leave the job. So everything sort of happened at the one time. And the traditional thing you would do is go and get another job. But there's something kind of freeing about not having any responsibilities, because usually we've got, you know, all sorts of things going on. But when you've moved overseas and you've sold your house and you're an immigrant in another country working on a work visa, you're kind of in like this temporary status anyway. And I thought, maybe this is the time to start the business. You know, I've talked about it so many times. So many people have said this would work really well. Maybe this is the time to give it a go. And I'm quite a structured person, so I wrote a plan. So I knew I've got a year to do this. I've got a year to start knowing that I can replace my salary because we still had overheads. And I thought, and if I get to a point where I know it's not got any traction, then I can go back and get a job. Yeah, I'm going to lose face and have to tell people, well, I started a business and it didn't work. But you know what? I've had to tell people worse news than that, and I'm sure I will in the future. So yeah, that's how it came about.
So what was it about your job that you're like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to actually now take that step forward and build this business that I've been talking about for so long. What happened there?
I mean, I don't think anything dramatic happened there. because the work that I do is still the work that I was doing then is very much the work I do now as a consultant, and I loved it. We definitely were missing home. We had some relatives who weren't keeping too well, and living on another continent is hard. It's hard to be on another continent when you've got family at home that aren't well, and you're not sure how that's going to play out. So that was a little bit in my head too. And then the job changed. It wasn't the employer's fault or anything like that, but some things changed just in the world, and it made the job a little bit different. And I thought, oh, the combination of all these things are coming together to show me that, sometimes the universe puts you in the right state of mind at the right time, not just the right place. And it is something I had toyed with for a while. It would have been hard to leave my previous job to go and do it because I was so comfortable there. I was in such a place of comfort there. But this was different. I was new person, new country. You've taken that risk already. I thought, why not just take this final big risk? Because if I left it another 5 years, I would never have done it. And I thought, let's do it now. Let's go for it.
It was the right moment for you. You're like, I got to do it now. You're never going to do it. That's awesome. So you mentioned right now, I like to get really kind of gets deep in these conversations. Okay. And we'll go as deep as you feel comfortable, Carol. Okay. And if there's any point that you feel like, nope, not talking about that, then just let me know. Right. And that's completely fine. And you spoke about, you being overseas and you working for these corporate companies, which is great, but you kind of felt homesick, right? And you had some sick relatives that I guess your head and your heart were fighting. Like you wanted to be there, but you really wanted to kind of build this business. You love doing what you were doing. And so as a woman, how do you keep going, right? Because there's always something that goes on in our lives, right? Because we wear so many different hats in our business and our personal lives. So how did you keep going, or how did you, I guess, prevent feeling so guilty, right? When all this other stuff was going around or going on in your family, how did you work with that?
I mean, it's really a skill you get from working in projects, and I work in major projects, is prioritization. Like what matters now, what will matter tomorrow, what will matter in a week, what will matter in a month, and so on and so forth. So actually starting my own business was a way for me, because I knew I was going to come home to the UK to start my business. I actually went to France for a few months to live and created it there because I knew that would work well. But I created it in the UK from France, if that makes sense. And I knew that was actually a way to have more time with my family and be closer to them. My son, who was living back in the UK, because he had been overseas too, but he'd actually moved back to the UK too. So he couldn't immediately just come to Canada and work. It's not as easy as that. So actually by starting my own business, I thought I'm going to have more time with the people who matter. Time that time is ticking. We don't know how much time we've got left for people. So actually, I don't think I'm big on guilt anyway. I think I don't live with a lot of regrets. I make decisions based on my conscience, and I'm really comfortable with the choices I make and boundaries that I've got in life. So yeah, it was very much what matters, and what mattered was actually it's time to go home. Although we'd only been overseas a year, we'd been away from home for 8 years. So
Wow.
it felt like that was the time to come home to Glasgow. And when we came home, I said, let's go home for 2 years, see our families, spend time with them, do all it's the little stuff that you think you won't miss, but it is the little things that you miss, like being able to pop round or being able to do the simple things. It's not that, because you go home for the big things, you go home for the weddings and the christenings and the funerals, but you miss almost like the banality of being around your family. So that's kind of what we missed. We've decided to go home for 2 years, and we've now been home 5 years, almost 6 years. And because we had a pandemic, we only just got home when the pandemic happened. So we didn't see them other than in Zoom for 2 years almost.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so when you say we, right? Because I assumed that you was away and working, living on your own, right?
So my husband was there.
Wow. Okay, so basically you and your husband uprooted whilst your son was somewhere else in another country. Right. Was he in college or university? What was going on there?
He was working as a chef in Lanzarote.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so all right, that's another whole thing. Like as a mother, right? how do you then, like, you're a wife, you're a mother, you're a business owner, you're an individual, you're a woman, like, how do you put all these components, all these different components, right? Without bringing so much emotion into it, because I know there's a lot of mothers like, oh my God, my son, he's in Lanzarote. I hope he's okay. What's he doing? You don't know. At the same time, you're working on yourself and progressing in this company. Then you've got a husband at home making sure he's okay. Like, like, how did you manage to juggle all these different things?
I think the thing is, like, you always think when your kids are young that when they get to a certain stage as an adult, you stop worrying about them and being concerned. And actually, what happens is because I'm now the parent of an adult, when they become adults, you realise, oh, it's actually more tricky because now they have adult problems. And as an adult, I knew how to solve the child problems. As an adult, we're all still just making it up as we go along, aren't we, Kay? So you actually think, these are more difficult to solve because you're then into the realm of this is life happening to them and you cannot protect them from it. All you can do is be there to comfort them from it, or use your resources. And I think for me, like, I see people, getting really upset when their kids hit these big milestones. I'm always like the opposite. I think it's really exciting to see your children hit milestones. I only have one, but each new thing is a new stage of life for them. And, myself and my husband have been parents since we were really young. We were really, really young people when when I had my son. And the things that he's been able to go and do, I'm excited to see him go and travel to new countries. So yes, you're worried, and yes, I would occasionally. He lived in Chamonix for a while, and he would go snowboarding off piste all the time. And I would occasionally just send a message saying, "Just let me know you're not dead." And occasionally he would just send a message saying, "I'm not dead, by the way."
Oh my
So
goodness.
you have to let them go and just hope that what you've put in will set them in good stead, because you can't try and hold them back, and you can't try and emotionally monitor them and regulate them. But yeah, I think as a woman, a business owner, and I think even women who are not business owners, there's quite often so many people need a piece of you that it's
Yeah,
very
that's right.
easy to not leave anything for yourself. And I've definitely found myself in a space at times where I've thought, oh, I've not left anything for me for a while now. I've got to stop and
Oh.
reel that back in.
Okay, can we dig a little deeper there, right?
Mhm.
Because self-love, right? Like personal development, self-care, all of those things, right, are actually huge. We don't realize how big of a component it is as a business owner, right? And to keep on going. And so when you found yourself in those situations, like, first of all, how did you become aware that, oh my goodness, this is what's happening, I need to change? And then what kinds of things did you do to change that so you can keep going and progressing in business?
So it's a great question, and I think because my background is in business and leadership development, so I'm always in that space of learning new things, doing the personal development, reading the books. And that quite often, and I'm quite a driven person, so I'm always driving forward. And sometimes that's the expense of standing still,
Okay.
because you need to sometimes stand still. So I'm always like, okay, finish that course or qualification, what am I learning next? And that's actually been a pretty successful strategy for me. I've always been a high performer in work. I've been a high performer in my business. I get stuff done. If I say something's happening, it's going to happen. We'll get it done. However, I definitely came to the life stage of I had just some really poor health a few times in a row. And it was actually my third round of COVID, which absolutely floored me. And I just, I wasn't terribly ill, but I could not get back to normality. I could not get my health back. I'd caught it when I was overseas working, just could not get it back. And I realised this is because I'm running pretty much on like a depleted level all the time. So
Ah,
it was a real lesson, and I basically had to hibernate for the winter. So I still had three businesses to run. So I had to make sure everything would happen and just think, what do I need to say no to? Because I'm okay saying no. It's a complete sentence. I'm fine doing it. But I really had to then, and the fortunate thing is I work with a lot of small business owners who the work I do with them is help them get like their well-being and their health related services into corporate environments. So who
okay.
do you think I turned to? The
Right.
experts who, like, this was their whole thing. And I thought, well, I could figure this out myself, or I could just do the thing which I most despise doing, which is ask people to help me.
Uh-oh.
And that's what I did. I reached out and got, some really good advice from some of them, because what I didn't need was generic advice. I needed specific
Mm.
advice for me, and it was so good. And I could start making those changes and some of them were changes to get me well, and others were changes to keep so that I stay well.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay. So many questions. So I'm going to take a couple of steps back. Now, you said that you had to basically hibernate, right? And I'm like, well, you hibernated. How did you manage to still keep three businesses running? Like, not many people can say that they've built a business to that point that they can hibernate and it's still going. So, what's the secret there?
I mean, when I say I was hibernating, I had to still work. So there was still work that I had to deliver. But what I had to do was not take on more work that relied on me being a key component of the delivery.
Ah.
So we switched one of our courses that I normally deliver, we switched that to Evergreen for a few months, so that if people inquired, I could just say, here it is, go and get it self-guided, because I knew I couldn't teach that. It takes a lot of energy to run that program. So we kind of set that down. There were a couple of pieces of work that we were prospecting for that I just went to those clients and said, hey, could we deliver them next year? And they were fine, because it wasn't anything static. And then the work that I had booked to do, I knew I have to do that, and I have to do that to a real high level of quality. So everything else that I do in life or for other people all has to come secondary to rest, recovery, and delivering what we've committed to. And of course, I asked for some extra help from within my team. I've got a great team of people able to help. And one of them, I went and said, could you take over all of this stuff? And she just went, yeah, and she did it within a week. So that was really good.
Oh wow. Okay, that's awesome. And I love the fact that you're still working in your business, but what I'm hearing is all you did is restructure, right, what you were doing, right? And that's the key here. It's just restructuring, understanding what it is that you need right now in life and in business, right? And be able to restructure that. And so many people build a business to work around their life, right? And that's exactly what you've done, right? So no matter what, you knew exactly, right, I've got this is what's going on right now, and we need to go online for the time being, right? So you don't have to work with any one-on-one clients or do any kind of retreats or group work or anything like that, but it can go all online. And not many people have a business that can just switch like that, right? Which is really cool. And so did you intentionally decide that, okay, if I'm going to build this business, it's got to be something that can go all online with a click of a finger?
I mean, I didn't when I first started my business, because when I started the business, we had not had a pandemic. And I think I registered the business in like the February before, so a year before. We
Ah.
started trading pretty much in the August, and in the following February we went into the pandemic, and we were on like active work with this was in the project side of the business, so all our corporate clients, everything went online on a weekend. And people said, can you do this work remotely? And I thought, well, I have no idea. We've never done it remotely. So
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
then, we then spent almost 2 years delivering the business online. And within that space of time, because I thought this might not have been the best time to chuck a really good job and start a business. And now I'm in a pandemic, wondering how you build a business.
Right.
Suddenly you've lost your ability to go out and network with people. All the things that you rely on had suddenly gone. So it made me very focused on, okay, I need to have business resilience, and business resilience looks like being able to deliver services online, either with my input or without. So that was then a very deliberate, like strategic move to say, how can I learn how some of this can go online? And what we'd started to see as well is that some parts of our business worked really well online, and other things we knew were better in person. So we started to then see, these things work well. Well, we can do more of that online, and some of that can run either passively or semi-passively. So yeah, but it was a strategy we designed because it
Yeah.
was forced upon us.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And I think that's the case with a lot of people that have businesses, and the pandemic happened. Is like, oh my goodness, let's scramble. What can we do? Right? How can we change things? And you did it really successfully. It really worked out well for you, which was amazing. And it proved the point when you did fall ill, right? You did get sick and it was still going, right? So that's awesome. I love that. Now I want to talk about what you said previously as well about you not wanting to ask for help or not feeling comfortable about asking for help, but you knew this is what you had to do. So what was going through your mind, right? Because you probably was fighting this for a long time. Like, no, I'm not gonna ask for help, right? So what was going through your mind where you kept telling yourself you're not gonna ask for your help, and then you took that step forward and were like, no, I need to ask for help.
I mean, I'm really good at asking for help for other people. So if you needed something, yeah, be like, hey, I'll go and ask them for it. And I'll just stroll in and be like, hey, Kay needs this. Can you do it? No problem. I'm an oldest daughter, first child, first grandchild and everything, sort of, and a type A personality. So our thing is, I'll do it myself. No, I will ask people to help. Now, in a team or a work environment, it feels totally different because delegation is just a task, isn't it? So it doesn't ever feel the emotional burden of asking someone to help me personally. So I find that really, really difficult. And fortunately, it's something that I'd been talking about with my husband for a while. And he's just like,
Ah,
because it'd come up in a conversation, he'd been suggesting I asked someone to do something. And I had said, but I don't like to ask anyone for help ever. And it was, after 20 odd years together, he was shocked to find this out, that I felt this,
really?
yeah, this deep rooted aversion
Oh
to
my goodness.
asking for help. Yeah.
Wait, does that mean that you feel awful about asking your husband to help you with certain things? Or is that okay?
I don't ask him for help that often.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah,
And if I do, then yeah, I would still feel a slight aversion to asking him for help. Yeah, like he was totally surprised at this. It's like,
wow.
obviously, like you helped me with anything I asked you for. Why wouldn't I help you back? I'm like, it's not about whether you would or not. I just don't feel comfortable. So it was, and I knew like it came up in personal development a few times. I know myself well enough to know that's like a sore spot for me. But I realised, so I had been trying to do it a little bit more because we'd had this conversation. He's like, well, why don't you? So part of that narrative is I think I will ask a person for help. They will not do the thing. They will let me down, breach my trust, and then I will be mad at them, and that will damage the relationship.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's because you've been let down so many times when you did ask for help.
Maybe
Okay.
sometimes, but also because I kind of just had this, I don't know what this, it's one of those subconscious beliefs that somehow,
Yeah.
because it took me a while to get to, well, why is it I don't want to ask for help? And I'm like, oh, because I would rather do it myself and maintain the relationship than have them let them down. Because if you breach my trust, it's really difficult for us to
Yeah,
repair the relationship because that's my number one value. And our values are the bit that when people breach them, that's hard to come back from, isn't it?
definitely. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So from what I can hear, what you're saying to me is that you felt okay with helping everybody else out, right? And with, I guess, how should I put this? With what you were going through, that you didn't want to ask for help for yourself, is something that I hear women say all the time. They're happy to help everybody else out, the entire world. But when it comes to putting themselves first, it's a no no, right?
Yeah.
So, can you tell me a little bit about what was going through your mind at that point, too? Because we like to spread ourselves really thin, right? But we don't look after ourselves most of the time. And when that actually changed for you?
Yeah, I mean, the patriarchy is great, isn't it? It's convinced us to say we do all the things all the time and be all things to all people and be good girls and play along
Yes.
nicely. And I have to say that wasn't ingrained in me at home. I didn't grow up in a household where that was ingrained. That's very much not the way my parents sort of live or speak. But society is structured that way. So I did realise, I think sort of November I got sick, probably around about coming to December, I realised I'm really struggling to recover here and things that would normally take a lot less energy, I'm finding so much more difficult. And I spoke to my husband about it, spoke to, like I say, I reached out to a couple of clients I was quite open with some of my clients and two of them immediately were like, do you want to have a chat? Because I've got some strategies to help you. I thought,
Okay.
okay. And had some calls with them. And a lot of what they sort of, talked about was who have you got around you who would help you? And I thought, I've actually got a really nice bunch of friends and a really great family who are all supportive and willing to help. And
Yeah.
I am being kind of disrespectful to them, not like reaching out and saying, I need some things from you for just now. So I was trying to put myself in their shoes and think, if I knew they were sitting alone struggling and not saying, could you do this small thing to help me? Because I'm, well, they wouldn't even have to explain it. So I kind of tried to like use some of that, reverse my perspective and see it through their eyes and think, oh, I would be so mad. And I would also be hurt that they didn't think they could reach out and have that. So like drilling into that emotion of it made me think, okay, well, I'm just going to say to some friends, we've got these plans. I'm actually struggling, with my bandwidth. I'm tired. And I'm going to have to not do these things for the next few months because I need to get well. And of course, your friends are like, of course you need to get well. What else do you need from us?
Yeah.
My family were the same. They're like, well, you're working a lot, you're traveling a lot, what can we do to help? I usually go overseas with family for Christmas. I knew that was going to be a stretch, and so didn't do that. And it was fine, the surprising thing was, or not surprising thing was when I asked people for help, they gave it. And a lot of that was just understanding that I couldn't do certain things rather than asking them to do things for me.
Right. And it's really, I think, surprising because every time I have a conversation with somebody where they have finally asked for help, right, it's been like, oh my God, they've helped, right? They actually want to help, right? And it's always like, why didn't I do this before? It would have been so much easier, right? And so it is that little trigger, that little click, that light bulb moment that goes out when you do it the very first time and it's worked out, right? And I think as human beings, we love to complicate everything, right? When really it could be as simple as just asking,
Yeah, for
most
sure.
of the which is awesome. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what you do, right? And we kind of hinted that you work in corporate, right? And a lot of things that you learned in corporate, you've kind of built into your own business and you're doing the same thing now. So I would love for you to kind of explain to our listeners what it is that you do in the corporate world or how you bring people together in the corporate world and why it's important for business.
Sure. So there's two parts to our business. So the first is I own a global consultancy and we work with people who build major projects. And that's mostly government clients or big transport agencies or anyone building infrastructure or delivering big projects. So those are all of our corporate clients. And the work we do with them is quite niche, but it's all in that project space and it's international. The other work that we do is we help small businesses who also want to work with big corporate clients. Now, they don't all work with my clients, they sometimes work with different clients, but I very much want to see more and more small businesses winning corporate contracts. It's such a resilient thing for their business to have these lucrative contracts, gives them much more certainty, just gives them the income and the escape from feast and famine. So what I do on that side of the business is teach small businesses how they can shape their business, prepare themselves, and then actually win corporate contracts and then manage them and then win them and repeat.
Oh my goodness. Okay. That sounds awesome, right? It sounds really awesome. I mean, but at the same time, I'm thinking maybe other people are listening to this and thinking, but it sounds really complicated. How do you do all of that, right? There must be like loads of rules and legislation and all these things that you got to put in place or think about, policies, right? Before you can go ahead and work with corporates.
I mean, I think small businesses definitely think it's more daunting than it is because a lot of the things they think about what a corporate company looks like and they think they have to replicate that. They don't. They're going in as a small business. So yes, you have to have, professional indemnity insurance, but who's operating a small business without insurance anyway? Yes, you have to have a product or a service you can sell. Again, who's operating a small business that doesn't? And yeah, they might ask you for certain things like invoices so that you can get paid. You're probably invoicing your consumer or small business clients. So the context might change, but a lot of the things that small businesses have to do anyway, like what if you're in a particular field, you will generally know the legislation and the quality and whatever the requirements are of being in that field. You'll know things about GDPR or whatever it is that you have to know to run your business. A lot of that translates exactly into corporate. More of what they need to know is actually how does the buy-in process work? And they're always totally daunted by that. But once you've done it once or twice, actually you realise this is the same set of processes in every different company. The forms might have a different name. It might take a different number of weeks, but actually it's pretty much the same structure. They pretty much buy in the same way. So once we get them through that, they're like, oh, that's a lot of paperwork, but it's money at the end of it. And if I can do this a few times a year, it's a lot less than making perhaps hundreds or thousands of individual sales.
Right. Okay. See, that brings me to the next question because I was going to say to you, why would you want to go into the whole corporate thing and do all that paperwork? And why not just stick to what most people do is coach individuals?
Yeah, I mean, not everyone I work with are coaches. Some of them do all sorts of different things. The reality is, if you sell to consumers or small businesses, they can be quite volatile markets economically. I mean, this year, we're recording this in 2024. 2024, very volatile market for small businesses. Lots of people I know who sell direct to small businesses are having a tough year. 2023 was tough. 2024 is really, really tougher. Corporates have budgets every year. Yes, they might go up and down, but they're always spending, and they're spending on the kind of scale that when they make cutbacks, us as small businesses, our budget that we're getting from them to us is huge, but to them is small. So we're rarely the people that we cut, that get
Yeah.
cut from the budgets, and they also tend to buy in bulk. So you might make, one year we made a sale to a corporate that paid all of our bills for the future year. So we knew from that one contract, everything we make from now on is profit. And that made us really creative that year. We could take some chances, some risks. We grew another part of the business because that one order that we signed, we knew, well, everything's paid for the rest of the year. We're now into profit, and that's great. That gives you headroom of a year. Of course, we brought in more contracts that year, but that purchase in bulk is so good for small businesses because it gets them out of thinking month to month and week to week.
Yeah, and I love that. Okay, so you're really simplifying it here. This is awesome. And so I guess if you've never done this, right, and you are like, okay, I want to work with corporate, I want to work with Panasonic and Sony and all these big companies, is it possible? Should we start small first and then work your way up?
I mean, I don't, lots of people ask that question. I don't really say start small. I mean, if you feel really spooked by it, start with a medium-sized company. But I think, go big or go home, why not? Big companies want to work with small businesses because they know that we're creative, we're innovative. When they come to us for solutions, we can very quickly come up with them and then quickly deploy them because we're much more nimble than much bigger businesses who've got more process and more decision makers. We're very often the decision makers in our own business. So that really appeals, and that creativity is massive. So no, I would say go as big as you like.
Oh, wow. Okay. And is it as easy as just picking up the phone to them and saying, hey, I would love to kind of work with you guys on X, Y, and Z? Or is there a particular process you have to follow to work with corporates?
I mean, it kind of depends a bit on the corporate. So, I could talk for hours about the different approaches. But I generally say your best conversion will be meet people in person, tell them what you do. So if you can get something called like a meet the buyer event or a supplier information event, that's a great way to actually meet people directly, tell them what you do. But there are other things you can do, like there are huge organizations like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, other companies that are that scale. And if you're in the UK, places like John Lewis, in the retail environment, they actually run courses to teach you how to be a supplier to them. And those courses are
Oh,
free. So it might take 4 or 6 weeks, but they will show you how to get registered on their database, how to become approved as a supplier, how you win work, how to manage that, how to send invoices. Really, really good. So that's a good way to do it. You can go in that
interesting.
way.
Oh, I had no idea about they had all these things out there, right? So that is pretty cool. And so is having these courses on how you can become a supplier like really common? Do all big companies do this, or is it just selected few?
I would say not all companies do it. I mean, most big companies have got an intention that they want small businesses in their supply chain, and a lot of that's written into their policies. Only some of them run programs, and it's some of the biggest ones in the world. So the sort of huge, behemoths of the corporate world tend to be, the bigger they are, the more likely they are to run something like that.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Now, we've spoken a lot about corporate, right? And it's very clear that you're an expert when it comes to working with different corporate companies, right? But we also know there's a different side, right? Now, we all went to Vegas, right?
We did go to Vegas, indeed, yeah. I
Right,
suspect what happens in Vegas is about to not stay in Vegas.
well, I'm not going to spill the beans on everything, right? But I think there was a moment, and you probably know what I'm going to be saying. There was a moment where we saw a different side to Carol together. And no, I don't, she wasn't drinking at the time. right? So it was nothing like that. And no, we weren't gambling at the time, right?
Yeah.
And it was in a bar, restaurant kind of place, right?
Yep.
And there was an electric bull. Right? And I think it came to surprise to every single person, right? That was there watching and even heard afterwards, right? That you got on this electric ball and you worked wonders, right? So can you explain what happened there? Because I actually wasn't there, but I saw the pictures on Facebook and it was talked about for a long time by people in DI. So what happened there?
So I have to admit that, yeah, I did pretty well riding that bucking bronco. That was not my first time on a bucking bronco, and it probably won't be my last time. Yeah, I definitely have a bit of a taste for adventure and a little bit of a taste for the strange at times as well. And we were in Vegas. I think we might have had 2 drinks that day, but we were drinking a lot. Quite often, I'll go months without any drink. But we were in Vegas, so I think we'd had a couple of margaritas, but not lots. And a couple of the ladies had said, "Oh, we want to go to this bar in the hotel," and it was like a sort of Western themed. And one of
Right.
them said, "And I think I'd like to ride the buck and bronco." And I said, "Oh, I love a buck and bronco. Let's ride the buck and bronco." So
Yeah.
we went in, we ordered some food and some drinks, and you had to get tickets organised to ride the buck and bronco. So we said, "We'll have 2 tickets for this table to ride the buck and bronco." Um, and I thought, it's not my first rodeo, literally not. I'm going on the buck and bronco before we eat the food because I do not want to go
Right.
afterwards.
Yes.
So I'd said to the 2 ladies, "Right, let's go for it." And they were howling with laughter. And I said, "Well, film it because we're all on social media, it promotes our businesses. Take a video." Went on, rode the buck and bronco. I'll give a little bit of a review here that there was a point where I was riding the buck and bronco and the corporate side of me did kick in because I thought,
Ooh.
I'm not sure if my travel insurance covers an injury received in America whilst riding a buck and bronco. So sometimes when you come off the buck and bronco, if you're holding too hard, you can hurt yourself. So I thought as soon as it starts to spin really fast, if as soon as I feel myself coming off, I'm just going to let myself go. I'll not fight it too hard because that's when you get hurt, is when you're fighting against it. These are my buck and bronco riding tips. So I came flying off. I fell off actually fairly gently. Wasn't too
Right.
bad. Laughed away. We got some great footage. The other was sat and ate dinner, and the other girl said, "I can't possibly ride the buck and bronco. I'm too full. I'll be sick if I do."
No. Okay. So this other person then didn't go on.
Nope, she did not.
So you did that. We all had a laugh. Right? And I think every time people bring it up and speak about it, it gives people a giggle,
Yeah.
right? But we saw a whole different side to Carol, right? And we're like, oh my goodness, she works in corporate, which means you've got to be very prim and proper and very, suited and booted. But right now, it's a whole different game. Right? And I think just seeing that, right, really open people's eyes as to, you know what, everyone has different sides. Like you, just because you're doing this in business doesn't mean that's how you have to be all the time. Right?
Absolutely. And that's true in corporate as well. You have people of all different, you know, backgrounds, interests, and definitely like the thing about the pandemic is it brought everyone was used to being in an office together, which is a very bland environment. Suddenly we all went into everyone's homes through the
Yeah.
power of Teams and Zoom, and we started to see what people's homes were like. We started to see what people had in their artwork on their walls, or that they had guitars, or they had children and pets. And actually, that's one of the few good things to come out of the pandemic is that I see people bringing much more of themselves into that corporate environment because suddenly they had no choice when we all went into each other's homes. And people are interested in that much more than the banality of, meetings and agendas.
Definitely. Oh my goodness. This is awesome. So I know at this point, Carol, people were thinking, okay, they want to get to know you, right? They want to learn more about you. And a little birdie told me that you have a gift for everybody as well. Would you be able to share a little bit about that?
I do, yeah. I have got a proposal template which if you want to work with corporate, there's a little training to go with it as well. This template will help you basically be able to propose your services to corporate. It shows you the format, tells you the training, tells you what to write, how to write it. This template has now made, I think it's getting close to £3.5 million. It is made for small businesses that I work with. So simple to use, training is there with it, and it will, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I know what I sell, but I don't know how to put it to corporates, this is what you're going to need to do it. So it'll tell you how to get your business ready, how to get yourself ready, and give you the template and all the training to go with that, so you can write your first proposal for a corporate audience.
Fantastic. Now, guys, I am going to be putting all the links in the show notes, so make sure you go ahead and grab that proposal, and also go ahead and connect with Carol. Right? Carol, are you on all platforms? Where would be the best place for people to connect with you on social?
I would say if they want to work with corporate, connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to know about learning to work with corporate, get me on Facebook or Instagram.
There you go. And guys, I'm going to be putting all those links in the show notes as well. So make sure you go ahead and grab those. And make sure you do connect with Carol, because as you can tell, right, there's more to Carol than what meets the eye. And she'll be able to teach you a lot of different things in corporate, but also not to be all about business all the time, and that we need to have some fun in business too, right? And that's okay, because that's what people want to see. That's what corporates want to see, right? The person that you are. So make sure you do connect with her on social media, and reach out to her. Have a conversation, right? Get on a call with her, and I can tell you, she's going to do wonders for your business. Carol, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute joy.
Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much. And I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.